because I realized in business, when I was doing those things to save money and sacrifice time, I was working 60, 70,
Mhm.
80 hours a week. And in a very short period of time, I burned out.
Mhm.
And ultimately my business came to this brink of failure because it all relied on me.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Brandon Gano is a visionary entrepreneur who transformed his frustration into a thriving business, which he successfully built, franchised, and later sold for a significant profit. Now, alongside his business partner, Sean Delaney, Brandon is pioneering an innovative approach to help small business owners achieve unprecedented growth. His expertise focuses on guiding entrepreneurs from being overwhelmed business operators to empowered business owners through the harmonious business architecture framework. You will gain insights into why the traditional business model leads to burnout, failure, and stress, and how you can transition from being hands-on operators to a true business owner by adopting a structured, scalable approach that reduces stress and confusion. So, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Candy. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you here today, and this is a good topic for listeners to really tune into and learn what they can be doing to improve their business so they're not stuck in the day-to-day. So I am looking forward to this conversation as well. And the first thing that I really wanted to ask you around this topic is what is the biggest mistake that business owners are making that keep them stuck as operators instead of becoming true owners?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the $1 million question, right? Everybody wants to know that because we've all gotten ourselves to this place of I had this idea. I started a business, whether you came from corporate or you're an entrepreneur your whole life. And at some point you find yourself stuck doing the work and not really growing the business. So I don't want to get lost in the conversation of working in your business versus on your business, because it's actually, I like to zoom out from there, and it's not that binary. So that's kind of an oversimplified model. But what I learned through my path is I've been through two acquisitions. I have had a failed company, and at the core of all of those companies and all of my experience was me. And I didn't, in the beginning of my journey, really know who I was, not from a holistic or spiritual lens, but what am I really good at? What are the things I should be doing, and what are the things I shouldn't be doing? So when we zoom in on the entrepreneur themselves and say, what are you naturally gifted at? What are you designed to do? What are you maybe not designed to do? Let's focus on your sweet spot and then fill in the gaps around you. That, to me, is the biggest predictor of success in all of the businesses and clients that we've worked with, is identifying every member of the team, fitting them into a structure or building the structure around them that can support scalable growth, and then leveraging that for success and growth. So it's simple. It's not easy, but you have to start with the person at the core of the business.
Well, and someone might be listening and say, okay, I understand the concept, but I recently started a business, or I've been in business for a while, but I don't have all the people on my team. So I wear all the hats. I do the marketing and the HR and, the sales calls and the bookkeeping and, all the things that it requires to run a business. And I know I'm good at certain things. I have a passion for certain things, but I have to do it all. What would you say to them?
Been there, done that. It's, you have to get to sort of out of the treading water, so to speak, as quickly as possible. When I started my first business, I remember there are just some things that I know I'm not good at. Accounting and bookkeeping is one of them. I think I made it 3 weeks in business before I hired a CPA who also did bookkeeping for me. And it was, it's minimal. It was like $300 a month, or probably even less at that point. But that to me was if I didn't spend that, I would have spent hours a month, probably hours a week doing the bookkeeping. It would have been a mess. I would have ended up in jail. I guarantee it, because who really enjoys or knows how to do that stuff? But outside of that point, that for me was that first identification of, okay, not only am I not good at this, it actually drains me of energy and I'm useless the rest of the day after I try to attempt it. Um, and it's going to negatively impact my business in the long term. So it was finding that money to invest in that. And it was truly an investment, not an expense. And I started doing that, item by item. What are these things that I can delegate? It doesn't have to be a full-time person,
Right.
especially like I said in the beginning, it was a couple $100 a month. It saved me hours, it saved me headaches, saved me energy. I've had this conversation with people and they say, yeah, but money's tight and I can't do that. So you have to look at it two ways. Is the money tight because you're sacrificing spending money for saving time, which in the long run is going to cost you more time and more money anyway? You have to look at the opportunity cost. What are you not able to do because you're not investing the money? And on the flip side of that is, do you have a viable business that actually can make the money needed so you can't, or so you don't do all of those things, because that's not sustainable either. Nobody can go through life doing all the things that it takes to run a successful business at any level. You can do it for short periods of time, but I don't think we want to do that either. That's not why we started the business, to do all of these other things. So you kind of have to look at it from both lenses. My biggest piece of advice though is get the things off your plate as soon as possible that are draining you and wasting your time and energy.
Well, along that line, I think, I've talked to people before too that will say, because we're in the bookkeeping industry, too, we do the bookkeeping and payroll, all that compliance. And sometimes people will say, well, it's more than I thought, I was going to have to pay. And so I'll just do it myself. And then the question is also then, again, how much time does it take you to do it? And what could you earn with that time if you actually outsource that to a professional who could handle it and freed up your time to do the things that you love and could grow your business? How much more could you actually generate? Because I don't think they always look at that. They look at, well, it's going to cost me this much for the service, whether it's bookkeeping or it's, an admin or whatever that is. So do you want to maybe touch on, how they can overcome in their own mind those challenges of, I can't let it go because it's going to cost too much, or even the other side of that, if I let it go, they're not going to do it the way that I think it needs to be done. Like, there's a lot of those barriers that need to be overcome.
Yeah, I'll start with a crazy thought and idea, and maybe you hate this idea, maybe not. I'm open to it. I would say for you to do your own bookkeeping, even though you're in that business, in that industry, is actually a waste of your time, because you're not going to put the same level of focus and attention on yours, because it's not a revenue generating activity, and you're not serving the client. You're just getting through it because it needs to be done. That's a crazy example where again, I would look at that and I would say, could I actually use this time to serve my clients better or make more money? And it's going to be a case by case basis, but that's, again, it's just an idea to float out there. But as far as, that question of what are you doing? How much revenue is it generating? Everyone has heard the exercises of assign dollar values to where you're putting your time. I would also say, within that list that you come up with, what are the things that you can uniquely do that you can't outsource or delegate? Because if you look at that, we'll say it's a value ladder of different things. You have tasks that are worth maybe $10 an hour, then you have tasks worth $10,000 an hour. If you are the only one that can uniquely do some of those things, then by all means, in the short term, you have to do them. But as you increase that value, if there's someone else on your team that could do it, or you could hire somebody else to do it, I would still advocate for doing that, as long as it's profitable, it's sustainable. Because I don't think we started our businesses to own a job.
Right.
And that's where, when we have this conversation about where are you putting your time and your focus and what's the value assigned to it, by nature, that's a job. Time in exchange for money. So what are your goals for the business is really the first question. Is, do you love what you're doing? Do you want to spend your time here? How much of your time do you want to spend here? Now let's back up and say, okay, where are the value driving items? Where are the revenue producing items? The things that you as the entrepreneur can only uniquely do. And we can start there and then the mission is still get everything else off your plate. And I don't want to say this from from a preaching standpoint by
Mhm.
any means, because this is not new information. This is me conveying my actual path here, because I realized in business, when I was doing those things to save money and sacrifice time, I was working 60, 70,
Mhm.
80 hours a week. And in a very short period of time, I burned out.
Mhm.
And ultimately my business came to this brink of failure because it all relied on me.
Mhm.
So this is not just like regurgitated knowledge, so to speak. This is my true experience of, if I didn't do that, and I've seen other clients of mine go through the same process. If you don't do that, the runway gets shorter and shorter every single day you continue to operate. So that's that's the place that I'm saying this from.
Mhm. It's so true, because how many people started a business thinking they were going to have time freedom and they would just work, a certain number of hours a day or a week and, not be overwhelmed. Yet most of the time, the entrepreneurs are working more, sometimes double that they thought they really would, sometimes triple, even if they thought, well, I'll just work, so many hours a week, and they're working a lot more than that too. So I agree that taking on all these tasks ends up making them way more overwhelmed than they originally intended. And I don't think anyone had in their mind that they were going to work those 50, 60, 70 hours a week, like you just talked about.
No, yeah. What is a 40-hour work week for an entrepreneur? I don't know if that exists for a lot of people, at least in the beginning, but
Mhm.
it's true. It's reality.
Mhm. So I have down that you have what you call a harmonious business architecture. So I would love for you to talk about, well, what are those key principles that are in that architecture and how do they eliminate stress and confusion?
Yeah, so this is actually the brainchild of my business partner Sean, who you mentioned in the bio there. He's been a fractional COO, and a high level consultant for the Fortune 100 for the past 25 years, and he's worked with these big companies. He's also worked all the way down through solopreneurs, and seen a ton in that 25 years. In my short time with him, and then previously running my own businesses, I see how these pieces come together and how it's a simpler way to run a business without, you read a couple of business books and your head's ready to explode because of all the different ideas and how complex it is. The common thread is there's 10 fundamental business principles that are at play, regardless if you're the biggest company in the world or a solopreneur running a taco truck on the side of the road.
Mhm.
There are these disciplines that are the same, maybe they have different volumes. So harmonious is actually an acronym for the 10 different letters, 10 different disciplines. I won't go through all of them, but
Mhm.
the essence of what we want to do is say, okay, based on these letters, these disciplines, where do I need to put my time and attention to make my business thrive? And what is the least amount of information, effort, knowledge that I can have about all of them to make my business move forward? It's the 80-20 rule.
Mhm.
So there are thousands of books written on each individual discipline. There's no way any one person or even any one company could be really good at any one of them, let alone all 10.
Mhm.
So that's why we wanted to just scale it back and say, let's take strategic planning for an example. There are over 50 different strategic planning tools used by the biggest consulting firms in the world. And nobody knows really how to use them when you take that to a small business. It's crazy.
Mhm.
Think about like a SWOT analysis. This is a really great example of one tool that
Mhm.
people have probably heard of.
Mhm.
We wanted to say, strip all of that away. What are we really trying to get at here? And how can we leverage that for success? So we've renamed strategic planning navigation. So that's the
Mhm.
N in the word harmonious. The core of navigation is really, okay, it's where is the business going? So we need a mission, we need a vision, we need core values, and then we need quarterly strategic planning.
Mhm.
So we've eliminated these 50 tools, combined them, and said these are the four key things that if you just do these really well, you're going to get most of the heavy left done in this individual discipline.
Mhm.
And when we take that to our own company, I mean, we practice what we preach. We take it to our clients and people who have implemented this structure. Again, also in the Fortune 500 level, it's almost scary in the
Mhm.
beginning because it's like, hang on, I was doing so much more before this. You're telling me I actually need to do like a fraction of what I was doing, and I'm going to get the same results, if not more.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's exactly how it works. So it's identifying the key pieces for your particular business within these disciplines that matter, that move the needle forward, that we can actually maintain, and then we just want to be consistent. So it's almost like creating a boring business. As boring as that sounds, that's really the magic of running a thriving business.
Well, I just finished talking to someone else in an interview who talked about running a boring business, and he says those are the most successful and profitable in the long run,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's a theme going on, and it's so true, because a lot of times too we think, well, we have to cater to the client and we have to do all these different things to attract them, and then that creates all these different processes. And if you could streamline that, it would be more efficient and you'd have, a better run business, right? So do you maybe even want to touch on that? Like, how could they then, if they have a system where the customer comes to them and they're kind of catering what they're doing to that customer, how they can switch that around and have a more streamlined, basic, boring business, like you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think everything should be driven by the customer. So from a marketing perspective, you should be sort of testing the market and seeing what customers want, and be forward thinking. I mean, by all means, please be forward thinking, but it should always be validated by what your customers want. To just create products or services that you think people will want, or because you saw somebody else in their business do it, to me is a dangerous place to be, because you're going to spend all this time, effort, money, human resources to develop this product and get it out there, and it may not be something that people actually want. On the flip side, I actually had a conversation with somebody yesterday she's actually in my town. Ironically, we met in a networking group, and she built this product for herself. It's basically a tool to go build relationships on LinkedIn. It's AI driven, but feels like a very human touch. Very cool tool. And she said she built it for herself. People were just asking her, "What is this thing? It's really cool. It's very effective." And she started sharing it with those people, not charging, just saying like, here, cover my costs for the AI, for the tokens and all that stuff, but test it out, see if you like it. Not only did she not build it for other people, she actually had no intention of ever monetizing it. It was just a cost and investment for her business to grow her marketing agency. Fast forward, I think it's been 2 or 3 years since she created the tool. At this point, she no longer has a marketing agency, because she's so swamped with people who wanted this tool that she's built a whole SaaS business off of this tool. That's a great example of letting the customer and the market drive your path forward. I'll give you the flip side of that too. Within our own company, we have one of our co-founders. I always joke with him that he lives in the future. Like, he literally sees what's possible 10 years down the road. And then he'll come back to reality and tell us like all these great ideas. And I'm like, half of the stuff to make that possible hasn't even been invented yet. So I don't know where you came from on what spaceship, but like in the reality that I live in, I don't see necessarily that path forward. Every idea for him not only is brilliant, not from his perspective, but I agree with him. They are brilliant ideas. But for him to come back and expect to start working on that and implementing it would be crazy, and also detrimental to our company. Our customers are not asking for it. It has not been validated. It would require so many resources to make that happen. It's just not worth it at this point. So what I did for him, and I've done this for other people in my own companies in the past, we built an innovation funnel where we use Notion as our sort of our company hub. We use project management, ton of different things. I built this form that says, okay, go in there, fill out this form, put all of your ideas. Even give me like a 30 to 60-minute video, a screen share video of you walking through how this is going to work in the future. Be as detailed as possible. Now get that idea out of your head. Hit submit on the form. It's going to live there. And then every 3 months in our strategic planning meetings with leadership, we go through, we look at the strategic planning funnel, we look at the marketing ideas funnel, we look at everything that's been submitted, so that the ideas that come up are not lost and they're not invalidated. It's just, we're asking that question first of, is it a now thing, or is it a maybe later thing, or ultimately, is it a just get rid of it thing? But we want to give space for the entrepreneur to be creative, to have those ideas, but then also have our foot on the brake pedal and say, that's not really where we're headed right now. So let's just pause on that and we'll get back to it.
So, I mean, there's so many ideas that people can have as well too. And like I said, sometimes they're catering, to the customer. So sometimes it's hard to say, well, now I need to pare down what I'm doing, to offer only a certain method or things like that too. So I know there's some challenges around that. But in terms of going from the operator to an owner, there are a lot of challenges that someone's going to say, well, I have to do it because I'm the one who knows how to do everything, right? Or I'm not sure someone, can handle these types of tasks, or it's private information, my bookkeeping or my payroll or things like I don't want people to know these numbers. So like, what would you say to the person who really wants to become the owner and not doing all the day-to-day things, but they have all these perceptions of why they can't easily move forward?
Yeah, all of those thoughts and that mindset that you just outlined that I know you don't have are the best way to stay stuck in your business. Um, you you have to make the decision which way you want to go first, and if it is to be the owner, to be the entrepreneur, to be a little bit more free, to have that time freedom, and even the financial freedom too, to some degree, you have to get past this in order to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to decide if that's what you want or you want to work in this business and own a job. I'm not judging either path, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't have both. It's nearly impossible. Well, that's not true. You can hire a CEO, you can hire a leadership team, but just understand they're driving the ship now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely in your hands. You can have a job within this company that offers you way more freedom than anybody else because you started it and you still retain the ownership rights, but those people are driving your ship. So if you want to be the owner, you have to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to train, you have to delegate, you have to empower people and put those systems in place. That's the one thing that if I there's two things that really drove my success in the first business that I sold. It was one, it was understanding who and how I operate as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
how I am as a leader. And the second thing was putting those systems in place to be able to give it to other people. So the SOPs, again, let's go back to boring businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
SOPs, processes, value stream mapping, understanding how we operate, and then being able to assign those things very clearly with very little instruction to other people, then you can scale because it lives outside of you. If you're the center of any process or decision, um, you're just limiting your ability to scale beyond it because someone's always going to need you for something.
Right.
So that was always my goal, is to empower people to be able to make decisions and access information without needing me present.
Mm-hmm. So if someone's listening and saying, okay, I get it. I need to be able to get things off my plate so I can have more freedom and have the business be able to operate without me. But I'm not sure where to begin. There's so many things that you've just mentioned, and I'm not sure what that first step is. What would you tell them?
I would say if nothing's documented, if that's your problem, start documenting. And you can Google it. We're relatively software agnostic and process agnostic. We want people to use what they're going to use,
Mhm.
and not just, pay for some fancy software that's going to sit on the shelf and help nobody. So whatever that biggest challenge is for you that's holding you back, just start documenting things, start delegating things. If
Mhm.
it's more of I don't know if I necessarily have the right people. Well, I'll give you a tool at the end here that can help you understand that very clearly. But if it's process wise, if it's business structure wise, what's the next biggest roadblock? And say,
Mhm.
how do I solve that? How do I
Mhm.
create SOPs? How do I empower people? How do I delegate more effectively? How do I create a more effective value stream map so I know how dollars flow through my company? I know where the handoffs are. I know they're happening clearly from person to person or department to department.
Mhm.
This scales, again, like I said, from solopreneur. The minute you hire a person, it scales from there to Fortune 500, and you'd be shocked at how disorganized the Fortune 500 is. It's
Mhm.
actually way easier the smaller your business is, because you can be nimble, you can adapt and
Mhm.
build from there versus going backwards. Very hard to put the pieces together after it's gotten that large.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember someone who came to me, once before who wanted some help with their bookkeeping. And I remember asking, some questions about the process. And he's like, well, I don't know. I just have stuff in my head, you know? And it was like, but nobody can like see your thoughts, right? And know how to do the steps that things need to be done. Or if we're going to take over, we need to be able to have where we understand your process from, selling your product to receiving the payment to posting to the bank to doing different things, and then be able to give you the information so you can make wise decisions, from there. But I remember that it was funny. It was just like, well, I don't know, everything's just in my head, right? So if you want to stop being that, working all the time in your business person, you need to get those things out of your head and document them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm sure you see this too with business owners. They're doing the mental bank balance accounting. So it's like, I know I have 5 checks out that are worth $32,000 and the bank account says $24,000. I'm not going to tell anybody.
Right.
Yeah, it's get it out of your head.
Exactly. Well, do you want to even give a few tips on, so like they say, yes, I know I need to document now. Like, what is the best way for them just to start getting those even down? They might not be perfect right away, but how can they really start documenting at least one process to begin with, right? And have it where someone can follow it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of. I know I said I'm tool agnostic. I love the free tools.
Mhm.
To be honest with you, this is not fancy. It's not overcomplicated. The process that I use to document SOPs is a combination of some sort of screen sharing software. So choose your favorite. Loom is an option. Um, YouTube to host it, Google Drive, Google Sheets, and Google Docs. So
Mhm.
all of those tools are free, or you could find a free option for all of them. Um, and I've even done that when I ran a multi-million-dollar business. Like I don't need to pay for this stuff. It doesn't
Mhm.
make any sense. If the tool gets the job done, use that tool.
Mhm.
So step one is identify, where does this process live? So we kind of have to zoom out first and say, do you understand how things flow through your business? That may be a step to do first. But if it's more of a simple thing like, um, give me a good example of something you would want to know when you're going into work with a company for either bookkeeping or accounting.
Mhm. So we could just say, what is a customer's accounts receivable process?
Perfect. Okay. So for accounts receivable, we would want to say, A, is this a process for all customers or a specific subset of customers? So identify that first. The next thing we would say is, who is responsible for this account? Do you have an AR manager? Is it account manager? Is it a sales rep? Is it the owner? Who's in charge of this process? So once we identify that, I would actually empower that person to go and create the SOP itself
Mhm.
from their lens, from their mouth. They walk you through the process. They walk you through the screen share video, and they own that process, so to
Mhm.
speak. So we have a process owner. We have who it applies to, and then we have who would use it. And
Mhm.
this could be anybody in the company. It could be finance. It could be external accounting and bookkeeping partner. It could be owner only or executive level. Once we have those things identified, then we would just want to say, are there any external tools we need to be aware of? Provide all that information and record it, and then go step by step and say, what do I do in a logical sequential order to get this from start to finish?
Mhm.
So we have to say, once all of those steps are identified, what are my markers for success? And where should I ask questions if I have any problems? So if I have not identified um, this success metric, that might be something like a bill was sent in the mail, and then a second or third bill was sent in the mail, then I need to start asking questions and say, where did this process fall apart? And if
Mhm.
it did, can I answer it on this SOP, or does it need to be escalated? Some things need to go back to a human being. Other things, it's just, okay, see step one and follow this process again.
Mhm.
So thinking through everything, both through the process, pre-process, post-process, where does that connect to? And that's one SOP, but now that you can already start to see how that stems into others. So
Mhm.
if the process fails, or it was completed correctly, but it turns back that the customer isn't paying, okay, well, there's clearly needs to be something that happens at that point. Where
Mhm.
does this get escalated to? How is this handled? Who is this handled by? And so on and so on. So you can get crazy with it, but very simply, it's just identifying who's involved, how it gets done, step by step, who's responsible for it, and then how do I identify success on my own so that I don't need to confirm it with somebody else if I've done the right thing or not.
hmm And our company, we have SOPs for all of the different things too. And, some people like to be able to read and some people like to be able to watch, the process. But we've also found that it's great if you write out the process, but sometimes if you're writing it and you're doing it kind of from memory rather than when you're actually doing the task, you might miss a step or something too. So we find too that doing the video is helpful because you're recording while you're actually doing it. So you can't miss a step in the instructions. And so I think that's also helpful is to have that to go back and review. But again, we like to have both kind of the written steps too. So if someone wants to be able to just quickly skim through and find that one area, that they need to look at, they can find it. But if they need to see it being done, the video is really helpful too.
Yeah, you want to be aware of how people absorb information. I remember, so screen share is great. I've also walked around with my phone and just taken videos. I had previously a physical manufacturing business, so I would walk around with my phone, or someone would take a video of the process. We would then actually make a QR code for each process and start sticking it on machines or different locations around the warehouse, so you could go up at any time and just scan it. What I like about the video aspect with the technology available today, which was kind of in place when I started, but it wasn't that great. You can transcribe the video. I toss it into ChatGPT or Gemini is my preferred tool. Again, both free. And I give it a prompt that says, craft this into an SOP using my particular template. Extract this information in this order. And now I have not only the written step-by-step instruction, but I only did the work once because I let the AI do it. So I give as much as possible, because you're right. Some people want written, some people want bullet points, some people want video, some people want the audio, and we have all of it so that you can absorb it however you want. But you're only doing the thing one time, and it's in real time. So it's a very real example of how it should be done.
Well, this has been an informative discussion. I know we are coming close to the end of the time we have together. So I wanted to ask, do you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners? And if they want more information from you, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so I'll reference the point I made at the beginning of knowing yourself. It really does all start there, and that was one of the two things I said that were the biggest catalyst in me growing my business prior to exiting. And we actually got acquired by the company that I'm going to mention, by HumanOp. Me and my business partner, who you mentioned, with our harmonious business architecture, they loved it. We worked on a couple clients together. They specialize in people, we specialize in business, and they said, this is a game changer. We need to combine it. And that's what we've done essentially. So if you go to humanop.com, humanop.com, it'll bring you to download our free app, and it'll give you that report of who you are. So think about it like a personality assessment, although now throw out everything you think about personality assessments. It's the only one in the world that's patented, because we've been able to decode human beings essentially and give you the operating manual of yourself. So it is a free app. You can go there, interact with our AI, ask it questions, and it can actually tell you what you're designed to do, what energizes you, and those things that you should delegate like now. So it will help you through that process and just make it a whole lot easier, take the guessing out of it, and give you, like I said, that operating manual for how to run yourself and then your business.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Brandon, for being a guest on my show. I really appreciate this discussion and the time that you took out to explain this process.
This was so fun. Thanks for having me.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guests and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.